Hello, Fairfax County Public Schools. This is Dr. Brabrand, Superintendent of Fairfax County, and welcome to my second town hall around TJ admissions. We're glad to have you with us this evening. We've received thousands of emails and calls and feedback, and we're here tonight to listen to you as we continue through the TJ admissions process. We want to hear from students, teachers, parents, alumni, all of the stakeholders here in Fairfax County Public Schools and in our TJ community. I am joined tonight by our Director of Equity and Cultural Responsiveness, Leona Smith-Vance, and our our Region Assistant Superintendent for the region that supervises TJ, Dr. Fabio Zuluaga. Thank you both for joining me this evening. We'll be getting to you and answering some questions in just a moment. But I do want to update you on a couple of things as we begin this second town hall on TJ admissions. First of all, I want to remind all of you that this began with information from the General Assembly asking me and every superintendent that has responsibility for a governor's school to report to the General Assembly and the Secretary of Education a plan for improving diversity at our governor schools. Our governor school here in Northern Virginia is Thomas Jefferson, and I have a responsibility to issue that report. It will be issued on October 12th. This is important work as we strive to put equity at the center of all that we say and do here in Fairfax County Public Schools. And we know historically, over decades, we have been challenged in having the diversity of the TJ admitted class match the diversity of Fairfax County Public Schools. We have talent everywhere here in Fairfax County Public Schools, and that diversity of talent is not finding itself into the TJ admitted class. I want to share with you an update last night about our school board work session on some things that we've already come to consensus on that I'd like to share with you on the screen now. We did in the school board work session last night, the school board reacted to the information I have shared with them around TJ admissions, and the school board provided consensus to eliminate the TJ admissions test. There will no longer be that battery of tests that is squeezing out the diversity in our students as they seek to become part of the admitted class at TJ. We'll be sharing more information about that very soon with our TJ community. The board also provided consensus to eliminate the $100 application fee. We know that fees of any kind can be a barrier, even though we've had a sliding scale for those with free and reduced lunch. A fee, frankly, is a way to really send a message, is this something for you to be a part of or not? Eliminating the fee is a step in the right direction, and I'm so thrilled that the school board has supported the elimination of the fee and the test. The school board also has directed me to work with our staff to look at additional capacity space at TJ so that we may be able to provide additional slots, not just for Fairfax County Public School students, but also for our regional partners who also have kids that apply and are admitted to TJ. And finally, the school board did ask for additional details over the next several weeks around how the admissions process will work. We shared an original merit lottery proposal that I shared at the last town hall. We shared last night a revised hybrid merit lottery, and there was some school board interest in looking at a holistic admissions process without a lottery. We'll be talking about those with the school board in a school board work session next month in November before completing our approach for how we will do TJ admissions for this coming school year. I want to talk a little bit before taking questions around the holistic review process that we shared that has been a part of what our current plans are around a merit lottery or even a hybrid merit lottery. To be accepted in a merit lottery, students would need to meet minimum requirements to show their merit, and then they would be randomly selected within their pathway. They would have to complete a student portrait sheet designed to draw out qualities in areas aligned to Fairfax County's Portrait of a Graduate and the 21st century skills we want to see in every student. drawing out their ability to be a collaborator, a communicator, a goal-directed and resilient individual, a creative and critical thinker, an innovator, a leader, a problem solver, an ethical and global citizen. We would also have, as part of this holistic review, a problem-solving essay that all students would complete. It would be a math or science-based problem with multiple variables that we've had for many years, and we would continue to have that as part of our holistic review. And the response would be in an essay format with the focus not on the quality of the writing per se, but on the quality of the thought, the original thought, the creative thought around math and science concepts. Also, as part of the holistic review that we shared last night was experience factors, providing additional factors as we review students that include whether those students receive special education, whether they're English language learners, whether they're economically disadvantaged, and whether they are from an underrepresented FCPS school, for example, a middle school that has had 3 or less students admitted into TJ over the last 3 years. Just a little bit more information I want to share with you before we take your questions and emails. If we can go to the next slide. I want to share, as I shared at the original town hall that we had, the merit lottery, I wanted to propose, based on community feedback and stakeholder feedback, some proposed revisions to the merit lottery process that can be seen as an alternative to the original merit lottery. The alternative that I shared last night would continue to have a merit lottery process. We would have, however, in our holistic admissions review, an opportunity to fill 20% of the seats, about 100, through that holistic review of the application, finding those that scored highest in that holistic review. The remaining 400 seats that, again, meet the minimum criteria for merit that we've always had as part of our admission system would then be filled by the merit lottery. FCPS regional slots that we had provide a standard set of number of slots per each region would now become proportional to student enrollment. So some regions of Fairfax County Public Schools would have a few more slots than some others. And we also committed to a rolling admissions process through the beginning of the school year to keep a class of 500 at Thomas Jefferson. If we can go to the next slide, I believe we had just a little bit more that I think I've already shared. To be in the revised merit lottery, students would need to meet the minimum requirements, and this is unchanged from the original proposal, of the student portrait sheet, the problem-solving essay, and the new piece, the experience factors. The highest 100 students would be offered admissions in this second model, and the remaining students would be selected randomly within their pathway. As I said just a moment ago, the school board saw the original merit lottery proposal, the hybrid merit lottery with a holistic admissions process identifying those that scored highest, those 100 students, with the rest being filled by the merit lottery. And the school board also asked for additional information on a holistic admissions process in general that could be done without a merit lottery. I'll be sharing updates on all of those approaches at our November school board work session, and we'll be sharing that information with you in terms of the date of that session very soon. I'd like to take just another moment and bring in Dr. Zuluaga, something that we talked about last night in terms of the student and staff supports for all of our students at TJ, regardless of the approach that we use for TJ admissions. Dr. Zuluaga, I know you've really supervised TJ for a number of years, and talk a little bit about the supports that we have in transition for our students, as well as the professional development that we have for our teachers at TJ.
Great. Thank you, Dr. Brayburn. The reality is that Thomas Jefferson High School has already established, has in place some really solid structures to support our rising ninth graders. Among the multiple structures under the leadership of Dr. Ann Bonataitabos, a fantastic counseling department, and also the Director of Student Activities, we do have some solid structures to help the students transition from middle to high school. We do have summer enrichment programs. We do have the 8th period, which allowed the opportunities between mentors and mentees to make sure the students feel welcome, safe, embraced at Thomas Jefferson. We also, this year, there is an initiative that Dr. Bonataritos initiated when she came 3 years ago with the Student Success Program, which is a research-based program with the University of Stanford. The Student Success really looks at the mental health and the well-being of our students at Thomas Jefferson, the importance of balance, the importance of sleep, the importance of making sure that our students are inquirers, creative thinkers. Not so much the ability to memorize certain algorithms or to respond to algorithms, but to understand that problem-based is important, problem-based learning and problem-based solving is fundamental as we move forward into the 21st century. In addition, Thomas Jefferson, many of you may not know this, but Thomas Jefferson has a very vibrant special ed department. I have had the opportunity to sit in some IP meetings because we do have some students that what we call twice exceptional. Students that are really very driven in math, in science, great communicators, but also require some special accommodations to make sure they experience success. So the special ed department, the English as a second language department, all those things, we do have those programs at Thomas Jefferson, and they do provide great support. We do plan to expand those programs because we believe that it is important to make sure that all students at Thomas Jefferson experience success.
Dr. Zuloaga, can we take a moment on this? And I'd like to bring in Leona. Leona, we talk about equity, and equity really is for all, even at Thomas Jefferson. Sometimes we try to figure out the definition of what equity is, but it's really about all students.
Correct.
Talk about how some of the stuff that you've heard Dr. Zuloaga share really supports all students at TJ.
Thank you for this opportunity. I was excited as I'm looking at this list. Really, this list needs to be in every high school. This is not unique to Thomas Jefferson. And one of the things I think it's important for us to hear tonight, because I've heard some narratives that I think are not okay for us to make an assumption that by diversifying the school, we're lowering expectations. We are lowering barriers, not expectations. We're lowering barriers, not quality. And so all of these things, when we talk about equity, we talk about student-centered approach. That's what this is. This list just gives me so much excitement. This is a student-centered approach. And one of the things that's a reality is for a long time, there was a high level of pressure to attend a school such as Thomas Jefferson. And our mental health of our children is important. So when we talk about equity and we talk about all, we mean student-centered. What do students need? And how do we elevate marginalized groups and dismantle practices that shown patterns years of not being successful? And so this is a great example of what equity actions look like.
Thank you. Dr. Zuloaga, can you talk a little bit more at TJ as we look at student and staff supports in terms of wraparound support for students? Then we'll go back and talk about support for teachers. But while we're talking about students, can you go, and we have a slide, I believe, that we can share with you about wraparound support for students that we have available at Thomas Jefferson.
Absolutely. The reality is that Thomas Jefferson the teachers at Thomas Jefferson are phenomenal. The Department of Student Achievement, the Director of Student, the DSS, and the Director of Student Activities, the department chairs, the principal. We really, like any other high school, if there is a particular need with a particular student, we bring a group of professionals to discuss what is exactly what the student is doing, what kind of support the student needs. Could be in the area of academic. Sometimes we really think that because the students that go to TJ, they know the advanced calculus, or they do understand physics at a very advanced level. And the reality is that some students experience success and some students don't. So what we bring is every day, every week, we have what we call in Fairfax the child talk. We bring professionals, we bring teachers in the different areas, we bring our counselors, we bring our school psychologists, our social workers, and we design a plan for those students to make sure they experience success. And that's what we call the wraparound of services. But I really want to talk a little bit more about what Leona, Mrs. Smith, mentioned in terms of equity at the core, equity at the center. The bottom line is that I do supervise a region that has 40,000 students. And I visit my schools a lot. I know many of you have seen me at Thomas Jefferson visiting classrooms, but I also visit my high schools and my middle schools in Region 2. And when I go into the middle schools, I see the incredible potential that our 7th graders have and our 8th graders have at Glasgow, at Poe, at Holmes, at Luther, Jackson. And I see that you see that potential, right? You see that the kids are inspired, that they want to become collaborators, creators, innovators. And what I am excited about this initiative, sponsored by the school board and supported by the school board, is these kids are going to be our future engineers, our future architects, our future CEOs. They just need the opportunity. We just need to expand those opportunities for those students that have never been able to go to attend Thomas Jefferson for a variety of reasons. One of them, the fee; the other one, the test. As a former chemistry teacher myself, I do realize that really the test may measure the algorithm, your ability to memorize the algorithm, but understanding the concepts, solving problems in a holistic manner, solving problems in a variety of ways, that's what I'm excited about, inviting those students to Thomas Jefferson High School. Thanks.
Thank you, Dr. Zuloaga. I think it's a great time now to take some calls. We've shared a little bit with you about what we've already done and where we are around TJ admissions, and now it's time to take some calls. So welcome, caller, to the TJ Admissions Town Hall.
Hello.
Hi, welcome.
Hi. Hi, good evening. I have a question on the 400 selection. Can you provide more information? My question is whether, let's say somebody who completed the math problem has the same chance as somebody who actually did it halfway, let's say. I understand you are picking the 100 based on their scoring, but then the rest of them, you just pull them all in one pool regardless of how well they actually do on the actual SIS sheet and the math science problem. I guess that would be my main question I have.
Thank you, caller. Let me do my best to explain or answer the question that you've shared. We do have a team of scores, as Mr. Shugart shared last night. We have about 50 evaluators who go through the applications. They score the student information sheet, that portrait sheet that we're calling it now. They score the problem-solving essay, and all of that, along with the student GPA review that we do, becomes part of our review. In addition, we have shared the experience factors that we also put into the process. So all of that is scored, all of it is reviewed with at least a second evaluator to have inter-rater reliability, and we'll continue to use that process as we have. I believe we'll be continuing to use that process regardless of the ultimate approach that we have. This review, remember, we would be doing for the merit lottery, the hybrid merit lottery, and frankly, the holistic admissions review even without a lottery. So these components that we shared already would still be there, and they would still be scored by a trained team of evaluators that we've had for many years. They continue to get training every year, and we continue to have mechanisms in place to provide inter-rater reliability. Let's take another call. Caller, welcome to TJ Admissions Town Hall. Hi. All right, we're going to keep going. Caller, welcome to TJ Admissions Town Hall.
Yeah, hello.
Hi, welcome.
Hi there. My name is Asmani, and I'm a mom in Fairfax County. I came to the United States at the age of 4. I was English as a second language student, ate breakfast in the line for kids who had free and reduced meals. I grew up to become a journalist and raised my son here in Fairfax County, and I could hardly believe that I would have to turn my investigative skills to the issue of TJ and the attack that we've had over these last several months on our school and our students. I just want to ask you, you created this plan here at the last hour, in the last days of this supposed deadline for the Secretary of Education. But I did a Freedom of Information Act request that I just got today. And I'm looking at a letter from May 19th from the Virginia Department of Education. And the Education Department says very clearly that you simply have to fill out this report. And it says really closely, the report should end up rather simple, sticking closely to the specific wording of the budget language. It's nothing complicated. And yet, over these last several months, we've had this orchestrated attack on not only TJ, but the students and the families. Dr. Brabrand, you have literally said that TJ needs more students of color. And we have our equity officer here sitting here, putting down our students. And so many times our school board members have done the same for an agenda that didn't need to become the chaos that it's been for parents and students these last couple months. How can you possibly use the excuse of this education secretary's report when it's a simple form to try to ram through the community an overhaul of a school that needs to be protected? And most of all, its students need to be nourished and supported. But instead, you've called them all sorts of names, from test prepped to pay to play to racist even, toxic. These are beautiful kids. They're our children. And when you talk about a caring culture, you should be extending that kind of care to the families that are within the walls of TJ today. But instead, you have betrayed our families and our school. And I cannot even understand how you can sit there right now and talk these talking points about equity when we have a mostly minority, mostly immigrant student population that now feels under siege and unwelcome. For 50 years, I've been in this country, and I have never felt as marginalized and as otherized and as isolated as I do today by a white man who is sitting as the school superintendent telling us that we aren't people of color. This is the elephant in the room, and you need to address your own racism against the students and families at TJ and the fact that you have used bureaucracy. So please, please have some conscience and speak with some honesty and not the ridiculous talking points you've been throwing at us. Thank you.
Thank you, Ashra. I really appreciate that. I've certainly followed your Twitter and your perspective, and there really are many perspectives around this issue. I do appreciate your passion. I appreciate your journey. And I want to clarify a couple of remarks that you have shared. Yes, we did receive statutory requirement from the General Assembly to address a plan around diversity for our governor's school. I had the choice to make my response to that plan as bold as I wanted it to be, or as much adhering to the status quo. I believe our country, in the middle of this pandemic, in the murder of George Floyd, has reached a moment where we have to, with a fresh perspective, relook at equity in everything that we do. We've had an over 25-year conversation, honestly, about TJ admissions from when I first arrived here myself in Fairfax County Public Schools as a simple intern at a high school where it was large numbers of African American and Latino students, even then, Latinx students, never felt a part of the TJ community. I do believe it is time to do something other than the status quo, that it's the right thing for all of our kids, for all of our community. I do want to share your perspective about people feeling hurt in any comments that I've made. I understand as superintendent, people listen and look to me for leadership. Last night I shared that my comments about pay to play I got in feedback may have been misinterpreted that I meant to attack students or their families who do have their kids enrolled in test prep. What I wanted to clarify, and I did last night, that those comments were about an industry that preys on the hopes and dreams of kids and families, of course, who want the very best for their children and will do what they can to support their kids. They're simply playing by the rules. But we made the rules in Fairfax County. College after college, including Caltech, one of the most prestigious science, technology, engineering, and mathematics institutions, is dropping standardized assessments as an entry requirement. It's time for TJ to join other prestigious organizations, educational organizations, and move in a direction that says the test is not the sole measure of entrance into the school. We have used the test to screen out talent that already exists in the pool. And I'm glad that the board last night provided consensus to take a step in the right direction. I do appreciate your words and your feedback, and I know everybody has strong feelings about the process. And we need to model respect and inclusion for all feedback, even feedback that doesn't agree with what my recommendations are. But I'm speaking from my heart that the events of the last several months in this country have changed my heart, and I've checked my own conscience as an educator that it is time to do something other than the status quo. We have kids of talent, second language learners, African Americans, Latinx students, economically disadvantaged, who are getting screened out from the process we have now. We need to come up with a process, whether it's the merit lottery, a hybrid merit lottery, or a new holistic admissions approach that gets that talent screened in. We can and must do better, and I believe Fairfax County Public Schools and TJ will be better for it. I welcome your continued participation in this conversation, and I hope we can all arrive at a place that we want the best for Fairfax County Public Schools and for TJ. Thank you again for your comments. Leona, did you have anything you wanted to share before we went on?
First, thank you for those comments. As a mother of Latinx, Black, special education, how many groups might I identify with? Your words mean a lot to me, so thank you. And I want to clarify, when we think about this, there are no sides in this. There's not someone wins and someone loses. What we're here for is that children win. And more children, this is not about, and I said this last time, and I mean this, and I know that you mean this as well. This is not taking away, this is giving to. And so we need to not make this about who is winning and who is losing. We recognize that all children in FCPS matter, they count. And when we have a process that shows us patterns of inequities, we have a responsibility, a moral responsibility to reflect and check that process. And I'm proud of our efforts. And I know that some of us might be feeling sense of loss or rejection. This is not to discount the wonderful, vibrant community of TJ and the hard work. This is how can we make this more inclusive for all. All of our children deserve opportunities like this. And that feeling of rejection we haven't been talking about is a narrative we're also telling ourselves. This is the best place to be in the United States. It's Fairfax County. There are amazing schools out there. And I'm hopeful that this will even be freeing to some of our families who put tremendous pressure on themselves, sort of to what you said about this industry that preys upon those to put their children in all these things that they don't need to, because our schools are amazing. I feel really good about where we are. We do have work to do. We're not going to negate that. So thank you for your words, Dr. Brabrand.
Thank you, Leona. And before I take another call, I just want to share the theme of rejection. We currently, through the process that we have, many kids who don't get in, who are rejected, it changes the trajectory of their life in a very negative way. We've created this, that this is the only way to success in Fairfax County Public Schools. We have amazing STEM offerings at all of our schools, and we need to continue to do more to build those offerings up and support kids for those offerings and give them the access of opportunity that they need to be successful in whatever school that they're in. But the social, emotional impacts of kids even applying to TJ, going through that process, and then waiting and feeling whether they're accepted or rejected defines their life at the end of 8th grade, is a process that honestly, in this moment in time in the pandemic, is not in the best interest of the social, emotional health of our kids, nor does it serve our larger goals of diversity of TJ matching the diversity of our Northern Virginia community. We need to open our doors. Our businesses come from around the world for our talent, the diversity of our talent, and we need to be opening our doors to all of that diversity here in our admissions process. Let me take another call, and then we'll listen and share with our colleagues here. Caller, welcome to the TJ Admissions Town Hall.
Good evening. I have a question related to pipeline issues for special education students in the process. How do you plan to address the pipeline issues for students with disabilities, both in issues with being identified during the AAP screening process as early as second grade, and also for students with physical intercommunication related disabilities, when the district doesn't currently have accurate ways to assess these students, and that often gets equated to a lack of knowledge or understanding inappropriately?
No, thank you, caller. We are going to have a school board work session in just a few more weeks around our advanced academics program, looking at it at the elementary, middle, and high school level. We received a consultant study back in the spring, unfortunately just as COVID hit, but we shared it with the school board with multiple recommendations about how we can improve equity in our advanced academics program. We'll be reviewing a multi-year plan with the school board in the weeks ahead, and I look forward to sharing that with the community and the school board for us to have the conversation, not just about TJ admissions, which is the end of the process, but honestly about the very beginning of our process of how do we continue to front load, identify, and develop talent, all of the talent that exists here in Fairfax County Public Schools as our kids enter the building. And we'll be sharing multiple strategies about how to expand access and opportunity for our students to advanced academics. So please tune in, and we'll probably, honestly, be doing a town hall around that information in just a few weeks. In fact, I plan to do that. I am going to announce now that we are going to do that because it's such an important discussion that this community needs to have. TJ is a symptom of a larger issue and a larger conversation that we have ignored for too long in Fairfax County Public Schools. Who gets access to and participates in our advanced academic programs? We can and we must do better, and we have a multi-year plan that we are bringing based on a consultant, a national consultant's recommendation, some of the best minds in the country that can make that happen. So we're on the right journey, and I look forward to sharing that information with you in the weeks ahead. Caller, let's take another phone call for the TJ Admissions Town Hall. Welcome, caller.
Hi.
Hi.
Thank you for having the courage to propose this long-needed change and making the process so transparent. I'm an Asian American, a second-generation immigrant, woman of color, test prep graduate, and TJ alum, and I strongly support the original merit lottery proposal. There's been a lot of conversation around how the merit lottery would increase Black and Latinx representation, but my understanding is it would also improve representation for many Asian American subgroups, including low-income Asian Americans. Could you please elaborate on that?
Yes, Leona, did you want to start with some comments? I saw you nodding your head.
Yes, thank you, caller, for that last nugget. Again, this is not at all an attack on any group. It's about inclusivity and mirroring our population. And when you look at the current population of Thomas Jefferson, it does not mirror even our full Asian population. Currently, if you look at our numbers, about 20% of our students who identify as Asian also identify as being students that need support economically, students who are free and reduced. That's a large amount of students that if you look at who actually attends TJ, of how many students receive free and reduced lunch, we're under 2%. So there's already an imbalance even in that socioeconomic ability. It does not represent our community. So I'm so appreciative of that caller asking that question and posing, will this increase diversity in other ways? And this is not a racial conversation. This is about what does our population look like and does our programs match it? So I appreciated that.
No, thanks. You know, that's such an... Yes, Dr. Zulaga.
Yeah, I do have a brief comment. This is, and I appreciate the comment from the last caller. This is what makes this a very exciting journey for all of us. This is the beginning of this journey in terms of This is a multi-step, multi-year concept that is going to, the question here, what we need to reflect is, why are we dividing the kids in second grade? Why are we putting kids in certain classes all the way from second, third grade, when the reality is that at that grade level, for example, all the kids are inquisitive. All the kids want to learn mathematics and science and social studies. They ask all kinds of questions. But our system somehow, it's not the fault of the system, it's just the structure that at this point is a barrier that we want to eliminate all the way from second grade. We need to think in terms of what can we do differently? Because absolutely, Dr. Braverman is absolutely right. The final outcome of TJ is just the product of multiple structures that really have not been allowed us to be inclusive with our kids. That's the bottom line. We have kids in second grade, kids in third grade, students who are in honors, in advanced academics, and what we need to really is to look deep, open our hearts and our minds, and figure out that if this is good, this, for some kids, it should be great for all the kids. I myself, I am a Latinx, I am an immigrant, former chemistry teacher, and really the things that have, I believe I am a very successful person. I wasn't that very good in English when I went to high school, but it was, when I came to America, my teachers, my ESOL teachers, made a huge difference in me and embraced me, helped me with the language, and all of a sudden, I ended up helping to lead one of the most prestigious school divisions in the United States. And when I think about it, I always reflect, if I had that opportunity, because the doors were open to me, why not to give this opportunity to all the kids? I totally agree with Mrs. Smith-Vance. We are not devaluing any group at TJ. Yeah. We're valuing, we're embracing. But the bottom line is, we do have a large representation of our, for example, Latinx kids in Fairfax. Almost close to 30% of our kids come from a Latinx background, which is awesome. And another thing that I really want to emphasize is that in life, to be very successful, is the more exposed you are to that diversity of thought, yes, and that diversity of culture, the more successful you are going to be. And that has been absolutely my experience in the United States, being with a variety of groups. My experiences in Kansas City, working with wonderful black teachers, wonderful black leaders. My experiences in Lexington, Kentucky, working with people from the South in the United States. And now my experiences here in Fairfax. It really has improved that diversity of thinking that allows me to be successful. And I do believe that that opportunity is, actually I believe in my heart that because of what we are doing, TJ is going to become stronger and better.
You know, thank you, Dr. Zuloaga. One of the things we're already seeing this evening, there are strong, passionate views and perspectives that we're hearing tonight across the spectrum about the work that we're doing. And we need to continue to listen to those views, to make sure they're acknowledged, affirmed, and included. One of the things that I think is so important in this moment is that we really are asking ourselves, when we put equity at the center, is to take a step back in this moment. This has given our entire country a collective pause to see inequities that have existed for years. Perhaps they're not intentional, but they have created inequitable outcomes, including here in Fairfax County Public Schools for many of our students and families. This is about continuous improvement, and it's about putting equity at the center of all that we do. And we're going to continue to do the journey together with you, in communication with you, listening to you, partnering with you, and then hopefully finding what sometimes people might feel is that elusive consensus, but consensus that we can find. We found it last night on 3 things: no test, no fee, and more slots, more opportunities for kids to get to TJ. Now it's about refining exactly the details of how that admissions process works, so that we can really, really showcase the diverse talent of all of our kids. Let's take an email right now. One of the comments here from the email, I think we need to bring back a program like Visions and look at a situation with STEM education in elementary schools. I wonder if there's a need for supplemental tutoring in areas like mathematics that's not being met. We should try to make sure no one's falling behind and provide opportunities early on. If there's a need for funding in this area, the school board should voice and advocate for it. You know, this is one of the issues around inequity that we've seen, that some schools have the funds to provide after-school programs, say like Science Olympiad, that simply don't exist. I don't know, Leona, would you like to talk about that, particularly as a former elementary school principal as you look across Fairfax County?
Sure. Not only would I say as a former principal, but even currently as supporting Title I schools is one of my roles right now. And we do have some inequities in the way in which we're able to provide enrichment across schools. And that's something as a division we need to think about. How are we strategically leveraging the wonderful community members that live in Fairfax County Public Schools? I think I saw the visions on there, and I know from what my research on that project or initiative was partnering with our businesses out there, STEM, engineering, and how are we fostering that excitement in our young children, just like you said, Dr. Zuluaga. And we also need to recognize that's another place where inequities show up. When we have PTAs that can raise $100,000, that's great. And then how can we support the schools that cannot? And so that's the work we have to do. That's the work I signed up for. That's the work we signed up for. We're here to do that work. We know that that's part of the issue, and this is that first step in that.
I do want to share one of the things that the school board has done historically, and this school board continues to support, is needs-based staffing that provides additional staffing at schools based on a school's FRM, or free and reduced meals percentages. We need to continue to look not just at staffing for the school during the day, but the staffing opportunities that really result in after-school extracurricular opportunities for our students at the elementary, middle, and even at the high school level. Now we're going to go to a phone call. Caller, welcome to the TJ Admissions Town Hall.
Hello, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Welcome.
Thank you. I appreciate the fact that you've come online and are letting phone calls in. And I heard you admit that you wanted to change the status quo, which I can understand and accept. I would definitely agree that some of the problems you have right now is about TJ is a symptom. However, it seems that the speed at which you're moving has prevented you from evaluating the impact on the quality of education. I mean, regardless of how you structure this, there's always going to be kids that are rejected. It's just a function of why, whether it's luck or merit. So why are you not taking a year to properly evaluate the impact? This seems very rushed, right? You announced all these changes right before the admissions for this year, and you're implementing immediately. Why not make the most? And then on that workforce, why not, when you do this change, make most of those slots merit-based and just reserve some of the slots for specifically underrepresented groups? And again, you said that changing admissions won't affect quality of education. But what have you done to research and make sure that what you're saying that is true with the evidence? And from my perspective, the primary thing that makes TJ different from the rest of Fairfax County schools is the admissions process. So that goes back into that same piece. Thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
No, thank you. Thank you so much. You know, the urgency really has been a discussion for 20 years around how to make TJ admissions right. And I think the urgency was doubled down as we do every year. Every year in the spring, we release our admissions data. This year, it happened in the midst of a pandemic and in the midst of a social justice movement in the aftermath of the murder of George Floyd. And I think it set off, really, for many of us here, and certainly in my heart, how can we continue to have a process that has an admissions process that has so few African American students that we can't even report it publicly? It just defies belief. And it requires an urgency to dig in and look at our process. I think if I could share with you and all of our community perhaps the biggest piece of information that I think has not been clearly shown, all of the processes that I've already proposed, all of these kids have the merit, have the qualifications to get in. The last barrier has been the test. that has squeezed them out. We're not talking about random lotteries where any kid just walking around in a Fairfax County middle school suddenly is brought to TJ. You must apply. You must have a passion for TJ, for science, math, engineering, and mathematics. You must have a 3.5. You must show through the student profile that you have unique interest in science and math. You must answer a problem-solving essay designed by higher education folks that has complicated original thinking that you have to provide. We're not just letting anybody in TJ. The reality is we have all kinds of students that can get in TJ, and we have limited space. Truthfully, we need to do more to provide those kinds of opportunities at all of our schools, and we have them. We better need to advertise them and provide access to them, and we need to provide an admission process to TJ that allows more of that diverse talent to go in. The school board has asked for more time to review our approach, to understand the research. We've done a lot of research. And let me be honest, some schools still in this country are keeping the test. But many schools, just like many colleges, are beginning a movement. Look at the last several months at the number of prestigious colleges. This week, as I said, just this week, Caltech. The average SAT in Caltech is 1540. I checked it because one of my kids was interested. Lots of prestigious schools are saying we can find talent, we can find merit without having a test as a barrier. So I believe we are part of a growing movement that has determined that their kids are more than a test, and there are better ways to get at how to get kids of merit into TJ. So thank you for that, caller, and we'll continue to have that conversation in the weeks ahead. Caller, welcome to TJ Admissions Town Hall. Thank you for your call.
Hi, yes, good evening. So I kind of want to second what the gentleman said. I agree with everything that he had just said. Why, I mean, you even said it yourself. I've got a couple different talking points. One, why are we doing this in the middle of a global pandemic when you can't get all your kids in schools across the board? So I kind of feel like we're sort of rushing it, number one. And number two, why are we doing a major overhaul like this without giving that time to see what those metrics are and what those outcomes are? I mean, I've emailed too, and I've also proposed, and I don't know why this wasn't considered as well, is doing the 20% lottery and 80%, the current admissions. See what that does. And give it a chance to settle in. But you're wanting to just redo everything as a knee-jerk reaction and due to a social situation, a global pandemic, like you just said. And then the other thing too, something to think about, and this is a different perspective. You talk about talent and the test is squeezing people out, and you're wanting the diversity and this and that. Just stop for just a second and think about these kids differently. These are children who have gone through mainstream education their entire life and have felt different, and they have a need. You would not be doing the same thing on the other end of the spectrum for somebody that has special needs or a disability. I'm not saying that these kids are disabled or anything like that, but just that they have a need that the mainstream school could not fulfill. That's the whole purpose of it. They have an ability above and beyond. And by lowering this GPA, you're setting kids up for failure. This is not a 3.5 school, and these children need to be around, and this test is an important part of it because it really narrows it down to children who have a special need, a special ability, and they need a special school, and TJ is that. And it just floors me that you're doing all of this right now, and this is anything but equitable, in my opinion. So there we are.
No, thank you, caller, for your comments and your question. And let me try to take a few of the pieces of feedback that you've shared with me. Maybe for some, this feels like a bold move, but this has been an over 20-year conversation. Multiple boards and multiple superintendents have tried and have not been successful at bringing more of the talent that already exists in our system into the admitted class of TJ. What happened in the last few months is frankly the urgency of now to do something different. The state also asked for a plan for every governor's school, and I believed in my own heart and soul that it was time to bring forward a change to the status quo to improve Fairfax County Public Schools and improve TJ. I think the other thing here, a great discussion and debate, and there really are different perspectives. We have put our faith, many have put our faith in education that the test is the thing, that it is the decider of who has talent and who has merit. I firmly believe that just because you're a great test taker doesn't automatically make you the best student. And many colleges are coming to the same conclusion, that the portrait of a graduate attributes that we're talking about, creative, critical thinker, goal-directed, resilient, collaborator, aren't measured on the quant Q, science, and math test. And that's part of the conversation that I think we need to have. Testing has its own set of biases, its own assumptions. And just look at the history of testing in this country and the disproportionate impact that standardized test has had on many students, whether they're students of color, whether they're students that are economically disadvantaged. There is a lot of research around bias in standardized testing. I'm not saying to do away with all standardized testing. We have it as part of the educational landscape. But for TJ admissions, we've made that the thing. And now it's time to look at other things and other ways to draw in the merit of our students who can all be successful at TJ if they have the opportunity. Dr. Smith?
I wish I was Dr.
Is it Dr. Smith?
No, maybe
Ms.
it's
Smith?
here. That's a visionary. Could you clarify? I think there was a miscommunication around the GPA actually was raised higher, correct? It was 3.0, and we're actually making it higher. So I want to be clear again. We are not lowering expectations. We are lowering barriers, everyone. And so I just wanted to make sure, because I think there was a misunderstanding from that caller that somehow the expectations had been lowered.
Great.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Let's take time for another email, and we're going to look at that. Please elaborate on the process of how the 3.5 GPA will be baselined across schools so that are so different in grading. Well, let me just share for a moment that we are doing the GPA unweighted. So we aren't looking at the difference in weighted classes. And it is important to know, in that question about grading across middle schools or individual teachers. GPA, that is an argument you can have with any GPA, and GPA is only one piece of our holistic review. We are working, again, in this holistic process to look at GPA, the portrait sheet, the problem-solving essay, and honestly, one of the things that we want to do in the future that we're looking at, but we're simply not capable of doing it this year in the pandemic, is the possibility of adding interviews, much like colleges do, to the admissions process. We just don't believe we're in a position this year in the middle of a pandemic to pull that off. But waiting is one of the arguments that we've heard. Why not just wait longer, one more year of the status quo? We're in a moment, I believe, that we have to say this pandemic has made us look at things differently. And I don't believe this is a status quo moment for Fairfax County Public Schools. And I don't want to be a status quo superintendent when it comes to the issues of equity for our students and our community. Let's take one more email as we wrap up. Why can't you make one of the responsibilities of middle school principals to ensure that at least X% of each students in the school apply for TJ? Well, we've certainly been working very carefully with the principals at each middle school. And in fact, we have a counselor at each middle school that works really to encourage students to apply. We are going to bring back to the board an even more detailed outreach plan and metrics associated with that plan. Again, as you do outreach, can we predict how much more the outreach will be as a result, or how much more applications will as a result of the outreach? No, but I can tell you that we are doing more than ever before to reach out to our community. Leona, I know you can talk a little bit maybe about some of the outreach we've done with return to school, with multiple languages, and we would be looking for similar things and similar approaches as we do our own outreach plan.
Absolutely. We know that sometimes we have to go to people and meet them where they are. And currently in our current operating status, the way TJ sits now, some folks don't see that as their identity. That's not where they're supposed to be. And that's part of the issue as well. And so we need to do our best to go out to families and schools and say, this is an opportunity available to everyone, and there's great opportunities in your schools. So we've done things like town halls in other languages. We know we need to go to the places. Dr. Bonatavas last night shared some amazing strategies. I wrote them all down. In barbershops, in schools, working with our business partners. Our parent liaisons and our community liaisons are great assets to us. They're in many of our schools in which there are these marginalized groups that have established great relationships. We need to leverage them, going and partnering with our neighborhood and community services and Fairfax government. This pandemic has really fostered a great partnership between FCPS and Fairfax government, and using and leveraging our resources and using them to help us get families where they are, meet them where they are, to teach them about what we have available to them.
Well, Leona and Fabio, thank you all for being with me tonight. And all of you, thank you for coming tonight. We heard a range of perspectives. We listened and heard your feedback. And we'll be incorporating that feedback as we bring additional recommendations to the school board next month around TJ admissions. Please continue to stay involved, stay in touch, and stay safe. We'll talk to you all very soon again. Bye-bye and have a nice evening.